What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Age of Quarantine. I'm David Castillo from Saint Vitus. You can follow me at Confines World. My guest today is Nate Rebolledo from Xibalba, a fucking awesome dude from a great band, one of the most vicious bands probably the past decade. So Nate's joining us today. I hope everybody's doing well out there in TV land. And thanks for all the support that we've been getting, guys. It's been incredible. I hope you guys are staying good and staying strong up here and thinking about all these amazing things that we got going on, because we have to unite in order to continue progressing the society forward. So I'm just waiting on Nate. He should be here soon. And yeah, pretty much that's it. I gotta open a fucking beer, huh? Boom. Cane head high. Delicious. Here we go. All right. Wait for Nate. Shout out to Beer Street, my people. Connected. Hey.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Just opened a beer and I'm talking to you, man. You know, that's pretty good for a quarantine day. How you living?
Good. Just my team. The lady, just having some drinks, you know?
Yeah, nice. Beautiful, man. Well, thank you for joining us today, Nate. Always a pleasure to fucking hang and talk to you, dude. So,
of course.
Basically, we're going to just kind of start at the top, but I always ask the same question, and this is kind of a good one for you, just to start the interview. First of all, where are you right now?
I'm in Long Beach, California.
Long Beach, California. Cool. And
yeah.
If you weren't at home, do you know where you'd be right now?
I'd actually be in Australia right now.
Oh shit, we had Australian in the comments. Would you? And that would be with your, I guess your day job, which is, if you could tell everybody what that is.
I production manage for a few DJs and artists, so I would be in Australia working.
Cool. All right, sweet. So now, not a Xibalba related thing. Let's make some cash kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Xibalba loves Australia, so whoever wants to bring us to Australia, we'll go.
See, look at that, dude. We're already making connections here, and it's a beautiful thing. So, Nate, let's just start from the top, man. So you grew up in Pomona, is that true, or Long Beach?
I grew up in Riverside, Inland Empire, Pomona area, which is like kind of generally the same area. But yeah, that's essentially where I spent my high school years at. Prior to that, I lived in Mexico for a while. And then, yeah, that's kind of where I grew up and ended up at.
Cool. So what was one of the earliest experiences where you just kind of thought, like you thought you were like attracted to music, like as a kid, you know? Like when you're a young kid, what was one of the first things you remember that you're like, I kind of love this. I love music.
When I was like in elementary school, I think it was like 5th or 6th grade when Smash by the Offspring came out. And you know, that record was so big. So I bought that record, and then that kind of dove me into that whole Epitaph catalog. And when I was young, I used to skateboard all the time. So that was just kind of like, it kind of evolved from there. And then I used to live next to this venue called The Showcase. And you know, I kind of just started going to shows in middle school, and then it just kind of kept going. But I liked it just simply because it was, you know, I grew up in a primarily Latino environment and community where that wasn't the norm, you know, like either, you know, the group of people are either, you know, a bunch of Latinos, a bunch of like, there's a huge gang community, and then there's like the punks. And for some reason, that's kind of where I lean towards it, and like what I used to love. And I just kind of kept going to shows and still do today, you know?
Sure. What was kind of the, you know, I'm from Long Island, I'm from, you know, out east and stuff. What was like kind of the, like you were saying, you know, you grew up in a mostly Latino kind of neighborhood and vibe. What was kind of the dynamic like at the shows when you first started going? Was there a lot of different kinds of bands, or is it mostly like pop punk stuff that you were first going to?
No, so Showcase was notorious for punk shows. So when I got into music, I got into punk, you know, and that was kind of like the niche of what that venue was. And then it kind of, you know, as I got older into high school, I kind of got involved in more of the hardcore community, and you know, hardcore bands started coming around playing there, and it just, you know, it kind of came and went, you know, and that was my home base for music.
Sure. Definitely.
But
And like,
but
what were some bands that when you were young, you were listening to punk besides The Offspring? What were some bands that maybe like local bands or different things, area bands that you really loved at like that early age?
one of the first shows I went to, and like I fucking fell in love with it. It was a Global Threat, F minus, and I want to say Subhumans played the same show,
Oh, damn.
and
That's a banger right there.
it was just chaos. Like I you could look up videos of this venue, but dude, there's people jumping off the rafters, all kinds of crazy shit, and it was one of the most chaotic times of my life. It was also that venue just kind of like was just perfect for that environment, you know, like
Sure.
no one cared, no one gave a fuck, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of interesting when you're a young kid too, and you're just starting to go to shows and stuff, and like you haven't maybe seen people act that way, right? Like when you go to your first really active show, you're like, I remember, I'm like, what the
Yeah,
are people coming from?
it was chaotic.
For sure. So was that a Global Threat with two singers?
No, this was the time when they had the one singer.
Mm.
Yeah.
Cool. I saw him with both and with one, but that's fucking a really interesting thing because you know everybody kind of gets into this stuff in all sorts of different ways. When did you start thinking to yourself that one day you wanted to start playing music, and have you done other things besides sing? What was like the earliest bands?
So in middle school, me and my buddies in high school, so Showcase used to do this thing called the Showcase Showdown, which is essentially was just like a local talent show for all the bands in the area. Essentially, it was a fucking scam because they made all these bands sell tickets to play the shows, but as a kid, we didn't know any better, you know. But yeah, we would play these shows, and you know, I think one of the first bands we did as a kid, I was like, it was pretty much like a AFI ripoff band, and then from there, I just kind of evolved. I did another band in high school with the same members of Xibalba, which was more of just like a hardcore style band. And then Xibalba started my senior year of high school, and
Mm.
still
And
a
then
fucking band.
yeah, it took it from there. So what
Yeah.
was it like kind of forming Xibalba, and what was the kind of like, was there like a point of view that you wanted to come into the band with, like, hey, I'm moving on from my more traditional hardcore band, and now I want to do something a little bit heavier? What was kind of the mindset in terms of forming the band?
So we started it in 2006, and at that time it was like the era of like, you know, Revelation Records, Indecision, all these like, you know, I guess more melodic style hardcore bands. And as a band, we love the whole '90s heavy metallic era of hardcore. You know, when we first started the band, it was pretty much a straight up like disembodied Sepultura ripoff band. You know, like, and that was what we kind of wanted to kind of embody as a band, because at the time, not many people were doing it. You know, so we kind of went with it. And at first, I think people were kind of like, this is weird. Like, you know, we haven't seen or heard a band like this in years. And that's kind of what we wanted to do as a band.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like also maybe also especially like younger generations, you know, depending on when you get into hardcore or different things, you know, you don't even have that point of view, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck is that? You know,
Yeah,
that's something really kind of different. And obviously, to me, at least when I kind of started engaging with Xibalba, I was like, at first, because especially because of the artwork, I was like, this is a death metal band, sort of straight away. You know what I mean? But then, I mean, I heard this sort of combination of sort of death metal and hardcore, and it's sort of two most extreme forms sort of put together. What was it like just kind of trying to hone that sound? Did you guys just sort of jam it out and get to it some way, or how did it kind of evolve from the Sepultura ripoff crossover?
I mean, our Brian and Jason, who write all the music, they've always been like heavily influenced by like death metal and all, you know, a lot of early '90s death metal bands. So I think when we started, we obviously were playing hardcore shows, so we're trying to lean to kind of fit in that kind of style of band. But as we got older, and you just kind of we developed into a band where we just wrote music that we enjoyed, and as we all got older, that's kind of all we listened to was a lot of death metal, a lot of metal, and I think it kind of came out naturally.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's really it's super potent combination. I think that you guys definitely elicit one of the wildest responses in the game, pound for pound. So
Yeah.
it definitely does the job as far as getting people excited and sort of riled up. In terms of kind of coming up with a presentation of the band, because again, like when I first saw it, I thought like death metal band, but then I saw Xibalba, I'm like, these guys are Latino, man. Like, Mexicano, what are we doing here? You've always kind of put forth this very kind of Latino forward sort of image, and obviously the name of the band is in Aztec and stuff. What was like coming up with that sort of aesthetic, like in terms of putting that so forward?
I mean, as far as the aesthetic goes, it was on purpose, obviously, and that's simply because we are a group of Latinos from Southern California that were just like, when we first got the chance to tour and travel, it wasn't really common to see Latinos on stage, mostly in an alternative music, So we were very proud of who we are and where we came from, and we made it a point to represent that, And it's not to kind of throw it in people's faces, but to show people that, hey, like as a kid growing up, I didn't know music or punk and hardcore existed outside of my city or Southern California. To me, punk was East LA. To me, metal was Showcase. The idea of music beyond in other states, that wasn't real to me. Until we actually got to tour. So once we're able to tour, and we got a sense of pride to represent who we are as people. And is it on purpose? Yeah.
Yeah,
on purpose.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. And to me, it's like hardcore has always been a very regional thing, right? This is what like DC sounds like. This is what LA sounds like. This is, and so I've always liked bands that kind of, they're taking music and then they're using that to kind of give you a window into like kind of where they're from, even like in a hip hop context or whatever, right? That's what makes music cool, to me at least, So as far as, also just writing and your lyrics and stuff like that as well. It's like you write often a lot of song titles in Spanish and stuff like that. What is I feel like there's sort of like always like this sort of like really reflective, personal, like morose quality to the lyrics. Can you talk a little bit about like your lyrical influences, people who have kind of you look up to in that regard?
To be honest, as far as lyrics go, I write most of the lyrics, and everybody kind of writes a little bit in the band, the lyrics. As you said, the lyrics have always been very personal. And to be honest, I fucking hate doing it. I always hated the time when we have to go write a record and dive into writing lyrics and doing that simply because it is personal. And for some reason, naturally, it was normal for me to write about depressing things, And it was a mindset that I didn't like being into. So that's why it took us so long to write records in between, because we did put a lot of ourselves into these records, into the music, and into the content lyrically. So, I think if you were to read the lyrics from the start of the band to now, it kind of shows where I'm at and where the band is at, as far as this headspace, mental, our mental state. Hasta la Muerte, which is probably my favorite record we've ever done, was probably one of the darkest moments of my life. I hate reading that shit. I hate writing about it. So we did it with the intention to share a little bit of ourselves, but at the same time, do I enjoy doing it? No, I enjoy being in a band, but to write lyrics was always very personal, and it's one of those things that in certain times of my life it took a toll. I think the last
I mean it takes yeah, it takes time to also reach, I think, those more vulnerable places to get to really good stuff that comes across to people as well. You know what I mean? This is not easy
Yeah.
stuff. You're excavating your own experiences to go and share this with folks and stuff like that. So when Xibalba started, I'm always curious about this kind of stuff and like progressions of musicians and bands. I mean, you guys were young kids. You guys were in high school and stuff of that nature. Were you guys like, hey, we're gonna fucking tour and we're gonna put like all this work in, or was it just something that kind of snowballed gradually as things kind of got bigger and bigger, or a little bit more serious and stuff like that?
It definitely snowballed. We, like, I said earlier, like we never imagined music, us being a band, going beyond our town and our environment. So, the first time we played a show out of town, and they're like, oh, we met friends here, and then we met friends, like, oh, we have friends in New York, or friends in Salt Lake, friends in Seattle. And like, oh, come play here, come play there. And it definitely snowballed into something more than we expected.
Totally, and that just kind of made that just. It's interesting how like all of a sudden a good band comes on the scene, and like all of a sudden people stop popping up. A little bit of a network to sort of see, hey, I
Yeah,
want you to come over here, and then all of a sudden you're like, fuck, I got 6 days, and then
yeah.
so on and so forth. When did you kind of, once you felt like you kind of had your you kind of started to understand that a little bit? What was it like when all of a sudden you started getting approached by like a Southern Lord, when people of that nature? Obviously Greg, who's like, has and Son has a great label and stuff like that. When was it that started to happen, and did you feel like, ooh, this is going to change how things sort of are a little bit for us?
No, it never felt like it was changing just because it was a natural progression. But it definitely like was cool to like, people be attentive to the band, what we were doing. And every step of the way, there's labels like, Closed Casket, Southern B, and Do Better, and that was really cool to see that.
Yeah, for sure. So it's an interesting way to kind of continue to do that. What were kind of maybe some highlights from like early touring and stuff like that? Was there any kind of shows or certain things that stuck in your mind where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm in X part of the world and like this is happening?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that happened for us that was like kind of blew our mind is that we played This Is Hardcore, and for some of the people in the band was the first time we've ever flown, ever been on a plane. So so we flew to play, to Philly to play This Is Hardcore, and dude, we didn't know anybody there. We like played a show in Long Island in Philly, and like I think it was Ricky from Backtrack was like, hey, like, you guys need a ride? And we're like, yeah, we just kind of pulled up and we don't know where we're at. And we went from there to Philly, and we opened up the fest, and I was like, oh, like I didn't think anything of it, but the set was crazy. And after that, it was just like, it was so surreal to leave our state to go play a show and then have a good reaction, because you're like, how the fuck do these people ever even hear of us,
Yeah.
And that was a really cool experience. I think the first time we played Japan, I don't know if you've ever been to Japan, but I feel like I'm in like Disneyland the whole time, because it's just so surreal. Like, it's one of the coolest places I've ever been to. But but yeah, it was like Japan was another place where like, we're standing in this huge venue, and I was just like, why the fuck are we here?
Yeah, kind of like
So
oh shit. And also getting the call from This Is Hardcore and stuff like that. You're obviously playing with so many bands that you respect and you grew up probably listening to and stuff like that too. So to
yeah,
have that kind of happen it's a beautiful thing. It's like a real like full sort of circle moment. So as you guys sort of kind of continue to tour and stuff like that, obviously it became a little bit more of a lifestyle for you and stuff like that. And I read a couple of things that you said surrounding the last record, and it's like, you were just sort of talking about the sacrifices made to do a band versus, kind of staying at home and taking care of some of those sorts of things. How have you been able to balance that or not balance it so well? And what's that sort of kind of conversation like in your head? Because we all have it as artists, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a period in time when Xibalba was touring nonstop, and it got to the point where, not only were we neglecting our families and people at home, but we were neglecting ourselves. I mean, both physically, mentally, and financially. I think a lot of people don't really put into perspective of what it is to be in a band, and people fantasize being in a band and traveling. Like, I am forever grateful for the things I've done, but it's also taken a lot away from us. So now, as a band, we've made it a point to slow down, take a step back, and just play shows when we can and do what we can. But unfortunately, being in a touring band, it's not easy. And unless you're the top dogs, headliners, dude, you're fucking scraping by. There's tours where there's a point in time where Xibalba was actually homeless, and there's a point in time when we were going on tour and we would rob grocery stores and clothing stores just to eat and put clothes on our back. And we did it for years. It was fun, but can I do this forever? No.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of like, I think that people might see the success of certain things kind of happening, but until you really endeavor to do it yourself, like anybody else, it's like, oh shit, like there's a lot of hard work in between these big moments,
Yeah.
to get to where you want to be. One of the things that I think, just sort of going back to like This Is Hardcore and things of those nature that made the band really pop off was the video for Cold, because I felt like everybody fucking loved it. They were like, I had like 5 different friends send that to me and be like, bro, this is gonna be your fucking favorite band. It's like all Latino kids playing the heaviest shit possible, and they love
Yeah.
to party. Like, this is for you. And I'm like, okay, yeah, all right, let's check it out. How did that sort of come together? And I felt like it was sort of not tons of people I think were making just like videos at that moment that really stood out.
Yeah, I mean, we essentially just played a show in our living room. So there was a period in time where Xibalba all lived together in this 2-bedroom apartment project housing. So we knew we were gonna get away with it because it's a fucking hood. No one's gonna call the cops, and no one called the cops. So yeah, we played a show in our living room, and it was one of the funnest days of my life because I think we played a show, we barbecued. I was drunk and hungover before 6 p.m.
Beautiful. That's insane.
And I was in bed by 8 p.m.
8 p.m. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, hey, dude, daytime rager.
Oh yeah, the landlord. You actually see her in the music video, and she's like, she comes in. We're like, oh shit, you mad? She's like, no, turn it up.
Just go hard. Yeah, no,
Dude,
that was just.
but
I think that was just something that kind of like made everybody sort of like stand up, pay attention, but also gave it like the air of the band, like, and the attitude of the people in the band came across, because I was really ready for like some super serious like death metal like shit, and I'm like, I love these guys. Let's drink. It's great, That's very cool. How do you feel about I feel like Xibalba in a way kind of ushered in a bit of a sound, man, in one way or another, where it's like hardcore kids sort of playing death metal and those things sort of starting now. And now you see a lot of kind of death metal infused into different sounds, and more metallic sounds really coming back into it. It feels like maybe the scales have tipped to the other side, where when you started, you were like, nobody was really doing shit like this. And now a lot of people are. Are there any like bands right now that you listen to that you dig, or like, how do you feel about that sort of shift in the scene?
I mean, as far as shift goes, I think it's natural, just to, take old sounds and redo them again, I think we did that. I think we did it perfectly. We did it early on, but at the same time, it's like we were just paying homage to the bands that we loved. And, I think now it's crazy to hear kids and bands be like, oh, dude, I played in a heavy band because the first show I went to was a Xibalba show, And I think it just kind of naturally progresses. As far as bands go, like I'm fairly like out of touch unless someone shows it to me. But we played a show in Texas with this band called Frozen Soul. Dude, they
Yeah.
were sick. We did a show with them, and like we've done a bunch of shows with this band Teeth that's local here. Um, dude, Gulch, like just like seeing those type of bands and just aggressiveness. It's like I really enjoy it.
Fuck yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it's important to always highlight kind of the people who are, like coming up, and you're in a position to kind of help people and create more and more community amongst heavy music, which is something that you've always done, which I wanted to talk about a little bit too, which is like the booking side of some of the stuff that you do. Could you talk a little bit about the SOS stuff and like the kind of that kind of stuff?
So it was cool when I was in high school again. I started booking shows with my buddy Scott and my buddy John. Scott actually plays in Xibalba. But we started booking shows just because, I don't know, I think we had the space to do it. And then from there on, we just kind of progressively kept doing it. And it was never in the sense that I booked a show because like, oh, like I can make money off this or anything like that. It was always because Xibalba started playing shows and be like, oh, fuck, this band helped us out in, this city. So like, oh, like, if you ever come to California, we'll hook you guys up with a show. We'll help you guys out.
Sure.
And it just kind of progressed with that, and it just kept going, and it still keeps going,
Yeah. One of the big events that you guys do is actually like a toy drive, right? Usually for the kids?
Yeah, so we started, I think it's been about 10 years. I'm not sure. It's been a while now, but we started this festival called For the Children. And essentially prior to touring and prior to starting For the Children, I used to work with the fire department, and we used to do the Toys for Tots. And when we started playing in a band, my buddy Fern was like, hey, like, let's do like a toy drive or something to like collect toys and give away. And I saw kind of how the Toys for Tots worked, and my beef with it was that like, a lot of it had to be, obviously it's a federal toy drive that people have to file applications, have to file, show proof of where they're living at, and you got to think a lot of people who are really in poverty, people who are really in need, don't really have that information. So we said, fuck it, let's do a toy drive and just give the toys away to whoever fucking needs them. It doesn't matter. I don't need an application. I don't care who you are.
Sure.
If you need it and you say you need it, I'm going to trust that you do. So we started that about 10 years ago, and it just naturally got bigger and bigger, and it's pretty cool because now there's so many people involved in it, when it comes to like friends, bands, and people that just donate. It's that time of year where you see all of Los Angeles just get involved, and it's pretty cool to see that, grow beyond what, me and a few buddies started.
I mean, I'm from the East Coast, and I know about it, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'm always like, oh, I wonder who's going to play this thing. It's always so great. And like, it's something that they put together for their community, which is really cool. So one thing that I was always wondering about too, like you alluded to this a bit before, but you guys kind of came out Latino kids kind of, from California and stuff like that. Didn't seem like when you were talking about this is hardcore and you're like, I didn't really know many people, we're just sort of getting connected to this wider world of hardcore. Do you feel like there was at times, like kind of almost separate scenes based on, where people were kind of living at, maybe economic status, other things like that, where you were growing up? Because I feel like that happens sometimes on the East Coast. And it's like, I see certain people at certain shows, but not at others.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, subcultures were everything had its own little pocket. In the early 2000s, where obviously the internet wasn't as accessible and music wasn't as accessible, and communicating with people wasn't as accessible, is that when you went to a punk show, it was a punk show. But then there's this whole another genre of like hardcore, which was like, oh, this is a whole nother world, but yet it's still within the same city blocks, And then when you start touring, when we started touring early on, you notice like these different environments and groups of people in different states and cities, and like, for example, when we first started, one of the first places we played Salt Lake City, and everybody was fucking straight edge, So we're like showing up, pounding beers, about to play a show,
Lifting
and
weights
like,
in the parking lot.
and
Classic.
we're like, oh, these fools are gonna hate us, but they loved it, and but it was just crazy to see like it was. I don't necessarily think it was like based on class or based on people as who they were. It's just based on what was their small niche and small community and what they liked. It was very prominent in that area that everybody was straight edge, and you
Yeah,
know,
it's really interesting because it's like I feel like when I see Xibalba, obviously like a Latino crowd like turns out, and it's like I think
oh
you guys
yeah,
created like the atmosphere to be like, yo, this is our thing, which I think is a very beautiful thing. I'm like, yes, I know what every song that I'll hear means. Like I'm here, I'm with it, and it makes
yeah,
me feel honestly probably the last band. And I think I got fucked up, and I told you this once, but
yeah,
it kind of makes me feel like either honestly Madball or Sepultura when I was first coming up. And also Dino Cazares from Fear Factor is pretty big. When I'm like, hey, I'm like, if I was a 15-year-old Latino dude again, I'd be like, yo, that's my fucking band. I'm with
yeah,
those dudes. Like, and I feel good about it. Like, I don't have to like, you know, go to the salsa club on the weekend because like that's what's expected of me or something.
yeah. It's crazy to say that because like when we first started the band, we weren't necessarily a traditional hardcore band. But we're like, oh, we're Latinos, we love Sepultura, but we also love hardcore. And it's, it's crazy you mentioned Madball because, we all loved and watched Madball shows. And we're like, that was one of the first bands I recognized, like, representing being a fucking Latino. And we're like, we're not necessarily the hardcore band, but we're like, fuck yeah, we get down with, with Madball because that's what, like, they represented a community of people that the rest, a lot of people don't represent or take pride in, and they did. And I was like, that this is fucking cool to be able to partake in something like that they influenced us to do that. And now we're doing that for other people. And you go to a show, a Xibalba show in LA, and it's funny because I've seen other friends from other states come, and they're like, yo, I've never seen that many brown fools at a fucking hardcore show. That's so wild. And I was like, yo, yeah, that's how Los Angeles gets down.
Sure, and that's a very beautiful thing, and like a very. I feel like bands that are special are bands that can create like a world that you can sort of step into, that you can kind of like feel that, and I think that that's like one of the coolest fucking things. Whether it's like a band like Necrot, and it's like or like a band like Portal, super like the darkest imagery, and they're all wearing like or it could be something like Xibalba, where it's like, hey, this is like this sort of Latino style hardcore thing. Like feel this different energy. Here's another sort of spin on what's going on here. And it's just, I think it's really, it's a very powerful sort of mix too, especially because of the imagery that you guys have sort of conveyed through the artwork and also through the lyrics. It's like this morose Latino with all the Incan temple, the Aztec temple, excuse me. It's like really cool. What was it like actually getting to work with Seagrave and doing that sort of shit? Because he's obviously one of the greatest artists in the game.
Dude, Seagrave is incredible. And I don't know if a lot of people get to see or look into the progress of how he paints these album artworks. This dude actually sits there and fine details, paints everything by hand. And it's dude, it's a lot of work. And it made me understand what he does and put an appreciation to it. I mostly put an appreciation to what he's done for the band and the imagery of our album artwork, because it tells a story from each record. If you notice, it's the same kind of imagery, same temples, and it's very on purpose because it's supposed to tell a story, and every time we kind of tell them where the band is, what the new record's about, and kind of where we're at as a band. And he kind of nailed it on the head. We kind of gave him our vision and our thoughts and who we are as a people and the band, and that's the artwork is what he came up with. That's his vision, and it's perfect. It's crazy
Yeah.
to say someone from the UK was able to have these paintings that represent a Latino band, and he did a great job, and it's incredible.
Yeah, it's really cool though that he almost kind of like does that little interview of the band at the moment, and then he's like, "How about like let me bring this to life this way," And it's
Yeah,
probably, I mean, it's always kind of just interesting when you can find those collaborators that are really special that make certain things, literally like just jump off the page or sing, and you're like, yes, this is the mood. I look at it and I'm like, that's it, right?
yeah,
Speaking of that, you guys have, for the longest time, you recorded with the dude from Twitching Tongues for
yeah.
the longest time,
Taylor
right?
Young, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And you switched it up on this record to Arthur.
yeah. We did. Yeah,
What was the move there and stuff?
I mean, we've done almost everything with Taylor Young, and he's always been like the sixth member of the band.
Sure.
He's the one that produced and like has helped us out with our sound for so long. And this was, what could be the last Xibalba record. I don't know, but we're like, we just wanted to try something different. We're like, what? We were very nervous about it because we're very comfortable recording with Taylor, and we know how to do it with Taylor. We know how we're gonna do it. So the idea of recording with someone else was kind of nerve wracking. It's kind of, we're like, okay, we're like, fuck, but you know what? We're like, Arthur's our friend. We're gonna say fuck it. It's either gonna come out horrible or it's gonna come out great.
Yeah.
And I think Arthur did a great job, but yeah, like we wanted to try something different. It was a cool experience because it was the first time as a band collectively we traveled to another state and stayed in a studio and sat in a studio and wrote the songs and wrote the record. And for us, that was a whole new environment that we've never experienced, and it was actually really, really cool to do that, because
it's really different, because that's actually something I was gonna ask you about, because Taylor's like local, so you did go to Arthur and you were able to, it's kind of nice to kind of push everything from home away and just have the music in mind. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, exactly. That's the reason we did it, was to just try to like do like a real band, because that's what bands do, I guess. Go fucking I don't know, I've heard of bands that are like, oh yeah, we went to a studio for fucking 2 months or a month. I could never fucking do that. Fuck that. But just to have that experience and record in a different way, it was really cool to do that and experience that. And we were super stoked with the finished product. But yeah, we essentially did all the music out of state, and then I ended up doing a lot of the vocals back here in California. And at that time was kind of crazy because I was working full time, traveling. So like Arthur flew here. I remember we did a couple songs like at my work. Like I did the vocals in the bathroom of my work, and I did some in like my bedroom. Like we did all over the place, dude. It was so crazy.
Dude, that's insane, really?
Yeah.
So Arthur came to California, but he was just kind of catching you wherever you were at.
Yeah, it was so funny. Because so we're like, because we did all the music out of state, and then we ended up, I kind of like overthink vocals and just kind of like want to get it right. So I kind of we always give myself about a month's space to kind of just listen to the tracks and start coming up with patterns and how to do it. And when we finally came back, he's like, hey, I'm flying there this week. And I'm like, dude, I'm at work. Like, he's like, I don't care. Let's just figure it out. So he like flies in, comes straight to my work. I think I work at a venue, I'm a production manager venue. I think like Panic at the Disco was playing on the stage. And he's like, let's just record this. I was like, where? He's like, here. He hands me the mic, and I just go into the bathroom and record. I record a couple songs in there. And then the next morning he like comes to my house. We do it in my bedroom. And I did it.
Crazy. To me, that's just so, I could never imagine doing that, just like for myself, like as vocalist as well, just because I'd just be thinking too much about all the other shit that's going on. But maybe you couldn't overthink it. Maybe that was kind of a good thing, because you just were like, fuck it.
It was actually like, it's crazy because I did some at Travis's house. Bacon.
Oh, Trap
So I
B,
went to
my God, awesome.
yeah. So Travis actually ended up doing recorded a couple of songs as well, and so for me vocally, this record I was all over the fucking place, and yeah, it was cool to like just say fuck it and go with it. Because Arthur was really good. Arthur's really good at that. He's like, I was like, dude, I'm not comfortable. Like, this is kind of weird. Like, let's just do it later. He's like, no, fucker, just fucking do it. And I said, fuck it, just recorded the vocals. And I was actually really stoked how it came out, because I didn't expect that.
Sometimes you need someone to kind of just like just push you off the fucking like diving board, like jump in, motherfucker. And then once you're in there, you're like, well, I got to start swimming. Like I got to start figuring it out.
Yeah, Arthur did that because I even told him, I was like, yo, don't fly here. I'm at work. I'm working. And he was just like, he just literally flew here and it was just like, we're doing this. And I was like,
wow.
I guess. I think
dude. And the record turned out great, dude. I mean, it really is like a fantastic record. I do feel like I can feel Arthur's sort of production influences on it. And that's like a great thing too, because he's obviously a really talented friend of both of ours. And,
yeah,
does really great work. So that is that's pretty hysterical. So obviously, right now we're like in this, shit time where we don't know where a lot of things in our society are sort of going to end up. But you talk about this record as potentially being the end of the band per se. Is that something that I'm actually I kind of love it when bands say that they're going to be done. Like, it's okay. It's all right, everybody. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes it's good to put it down. Is there any reason why you guys didn't just go, hey, this is the last fucking one? Or is it just like, you know what, we got to see how life is a little bit, and then we'll see what happens.
Well, here's the thing, dude. Xibalba's like the Wu-Tang, man. We're forever. Xibalba's forever. You can't get rid of us. That's a fucking fact. And what I mean is, as far as the band ending, nah. Xibalba's forever. We're not going anywhere. Are we gonna play shows? I don't know. Who knows? I'll play a show in Hawaii.
Yeah, I gotcha. So,
but it's one of those things that
I like the idea of Saint Vitus Hawaii as well. Just between
Cheers.
us,
Let's go. I'm in. Have you ever been to Hawaii?
Never, dude.
Oh, dude, we're locals there, dude. It's fucking paradise.
Oh man, yeah, it sounds. I would take going to like Pennsylvania at this time. Like, I'd take going anywhere at this moment, So,
yeah. Unless it's a vacation, I ain't going nowhere, dude.
For sure.
But what we mean by us saying that it's not necessarily that we're done or it's the end. It's just one of those things that as a band we've made it a point to. The band is for us, We write what we want to write. We play what we want to play, and it's on purpose to be able to make sure that we take care of ourselves, our families, and our home lives. For us to play a show is a privilege. So at this point, if we're not able to do that and take care of our home life, then we shouldn't be playing shows.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways. I'd say that I had a conversation with Steve Von Till from Neurosis, and he actually kind of framed things sort of similarly, like for a while, like in the 90s, they kind of like went out on the road, ate shit for a long time. Mm-hmm. But then they were like, we don't really like need to do this. Let's just keep writing music, expanding our minds and our sound, taking care of who we are. And they just slow growth approach, you know what I mean? A different thing. And then over time, they became the band that they ended up becoming, which is absolutely incredible,
Yo,
so
literally my favorite band to see live. Neurosis live is a fucking experience, and
mind-blowing, absolutely incredible.
Absolutely. Like, if people haven't seen Neurosis live, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, dude. But
yeah,
dude.
But literally one of the greatest of all time. Also, Steve just came out with an awesome solo record.
Oh, really? I gotta check it out.
It's super cool. Yeah, it's great. It's very different from the other ones he's done. It's my favorite one, actually. It's cool. It's got all these synths on it and shit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's dark. It's cool, man. It's like real like existential man shit, which at a time like this is pretty all right. So with Xibalba, we kind of know what we're gonna get now. It's like whenever it happens, it happens. Enjoy it if it does. Here's a new record. Just fucking sit on this for a minute. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm with that. One thing I didn't ask you, which I am curious of. So you said the other two dudes really like write most of the music, right? You were saying. How does like a normal song really come together? Like, is it really them just kind of jamming it out, or like does it come into the studio and you guys sort of just do it all together? Do you point out things that you like or don't, and then kind of help kind of edit a little bit? How does it work?
So as far all our records, everything's kind of jammed out at Brian's garage. So everything's kind of jammed out, written, and already prepared before we even hit the studio. So by the time we get to actual recording, the songs are done. You know, once we get to the studio, that's the point where like, you know, Taylor or Arthur would be like, oh, let's try this, or let's change this up a little bit. But for the most part, the structure of the songs was already done and made by the time we got to the studio. You know, they're very particular musicians about what they want to hear and how they want to hear it and what to write. So, you know, it's gone to the point, you know, we write, jam. Once we're actually ready to fucking finally record, you know, because for us, for the longest time, it was we'd go to the studio and we'd fucking, you know, play it, record it, and done, you know? It was never one of those things where we got to the studio. We never had the privilege to be able to sit at a studio and sit at a space like, oh, let's write this type of song. Or like, no, we went fully prepared. And, you know, once the songs are written, you know, we actually recorded it, I would actually normally sit down with the songs for about a month and just kind of, you know, again, like I told you earlier, this was the worst part of writing music for me personally, because I would sit there and dwell on lyrics and dwell on like the content of the lyrics and write these songs, and I didn't like it, but it also helped me very much because it was therapeutic for me to get these feelings out, write these things on paper, and playing a band is very, you know, it's an outlet for me.
Sure.
But yeah, that's kind of how the process worked out for us, you know, for all the records.
When you play those songs live, do you feel like that's when it becomes a more positive moment for yourself? Like you're like, it's already written, it's there, and now I can just use this song to kind of let that shit go?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You know, I guess now I'm able to play shows in a positive light, and I'm able to play shows and enjoy what I wrote and be vulnerable. But when I was younger, dude, there's moments of Xibalba's career where I don't remember a few years of my life, to be honest. You know, there's moments where, and that's the reason why we stopped touring, because, you know, we'd be on tour and half the time, dude, all of us are drinking and doing stupid shit. And as much as it was fun, it was also very unhealthy for us.
Sure.
And we know that if we were kept going down this path and kept going this way, we would probably end up dead or in jail, you know? So.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a really real thing. I think that a lot of people who kind of take on this lifestyle and do certain things, they're away a lot, they're dealing with a lot of things, self-medication, a lot of those things. Mental health, when you are, you know, scraping by like in a van, flying around, like just cruising around all over the United States, just trying to get through like these big tours. It's a hard and really taxing thing for a lot of people who haven't done it before. It really is something that takes a toll, and you don't have a lot of the you can't get into routines. There's a lot of different things. Some people are really cut out for it, some people aren't, and you know, it's kind of a hard thing to sort of weigh out. How do you kind of deal with that a little bit more in your professional life when you have to TM and do things of that nature?
Money, baby.
Yeah.
Paper talks. No, it's a lot in my
Paper talks. Woo!
Paper talks, baby. In my professional life, and like as far as you know, I production manage for, you know, I've done for some years now. For me, it's a whole nother ballgame that's very stressful, and it's very stressful, but it's also very, I love it because I'm able to create and execute a show, you know. So for me, I'm so involved in the actual production and of of a festival or a show that I want it to go perfect, that it's a whole different setting where I'm so concentrated on work that I don't even think about drinking or doing drugs. It's not, it's not even a thing. I now as an adult, I rarely, now that I'm home, I'll have a drink here and there, but for the most part on the road, I don't really drink or do much anymore because,
It's a much more
yeah.
structured environment too, comparatively to kind of like a more DIY touring. You're in the band, being the artist is different.
Oh yeah, being a band, being the singer. I don't got shit. What, carry the fucking microphone? Like what, I ain't got shit to do but drink.
Yeah, and that's sometimes
Dangerous.
kind of the trappings of it. I mean, and I've dealt with similar things too, even just running the venue, like
Yeah,
I could go to a bar every single day. There's always a show, there's always a drink,
definitely.
and so that's always kind of that sort of thing. Would you say that being in Xibalba and stuff really kind of primed you for your career in music, basically? Yeah, it was like training.
Oh yeah, definitely. It kind of it threw me through the ringer of understanding what it is, to be in a band, what it is to produce a show, what it is to do paperwork, what it is. There's so many things that involve being in a band that, unless I went out and did it, I would have never known. And it definitely grew me to be where I'm at now, and I'm forever grateful for that. It's a cool thing to say that, because me being involved in music and playing in a band has able to give me a life and a career that I love. I love what I do.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like a really interesting thing that I think that a lot of people can take away from this, and that, you know, I'm doing the same thing as you are, sort of. I'm not the guy on
Yeah,
stage every night or whatever, but I'm still able to play music, make music that I really like and
yeah,
enjoy, and that I respect myself for making. And then I'm also able to go and run my venue and do the things that I want to do. And you learn so much from just being a DIY hardcore kid that are like truly applicable skills. So I'd say to any of the younger folks watching is just get involved and you're going to learn a whole lot if you want to do anything, right?
yeah. Yeah. It's all. That's how you learn. I didn't go to school to learn most of the things I did, but it was. I think last week, my friend Martina, we were talking about it. Like, we did things because we didn't have the resources to pay someone to design shirts. We didn't have the resources to like pay someone to do audio for us, or those things where you're just like, okay, I guess I'll download Photoshop and figure this out. I guess I'll download and figure out how to do lights and video, and that's kind of that was a cool mindset of being in a smaller band, being in a DIY band, is that we were pushed to extend, beyond just being in a band, to learn business, learn art, learn how to like produce our own stuff and be a band. And
Sure.
it's, look at all the people that we work with. Taylor Young, dude, he didn't go to school to be a sound engineer or like someone that does records, but he's one of the best people that fucking do it. Same thing with Arthur. They said, fuck it, I guess I'm gonna try to figure this out. And that was the cool ethics of being in a hardcore band, punk band, whatever, is that we were able to force ourselves to learn and push ourselves, because we're not the real music industry where we pay motherfuckers to do everything for us, because we don't got the money.
Sure. And also, you can also make it the way that you want. There's not a lot of people that necessarily understand the aesthetic of what you're going for too sometimes as well. And you're like, nah man, I gotta make this way. And
Yeah,
then if you have a vision, you gotta push for it, and to try and make it real, basically. And I think that that's always super key too. It's like, yeah, we don't have the
yeah,
money for it, but nobody really knows even what we want. We know what we want. So we
yeah.
gotta like just go straight from the
Dude,
source.
dude, who's a perfect example of a band that's done that through every aspect of their career is Code Orange. I was actually talking to Jamie probably like a month ago, And it's, I'm such a nerd about production and live music and shows. It's what I do for a living. So like, me and him hopped on the phone, and it's so cool how like they create all their own videos, all their own content. They like envision everything and execute it. So it's pretty cool to see a band that like everybody in that band forcibly push themselves to like write music, create video, create production, create, a whole aesthetic. And it's cool to see bands do that more and more, And
Sure, definitely. We had Reba on here a couple of weeks ago, and it was really interesting to see how like they're just like a little commune, like building, making shit all the time, like on every aspect of being a band, like every piece of it. And you're like, wow, all right, cool. Maybe some people might see Roadrunner Records or something, but it's like Code Orange makes so much of their like everything basically, unless they choose a particular collaboration. I like when bands, it feels like at every moment you're interacting with their universe, no matter what you're doing with them,
Yeah.
It's a very, very powerful thing. So we got only a couple minutes left because Instagram cuts us off after an hour, but we could just sit on your porch. I feel like I'm just sitting on your porch and do this all night, but I just want to, dude, that's a great porch, dude. I just put up lights on my porch, so my shit's pretty all right.
All kinds of plants and shit.
Yeah, your plant game is way stronger than mine. I got no plant game, but I got furniture and I got lights. Plants next. I'll show you a picture.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for chatting with us, Nate. You're the fucking man. Take care of yourself. And for anybody out there, jam that not quite last Xibalba record. All right?
Xibalba's forever, dude. Peace.
Xibalba forever. Ciao.